Hey everyone, welcome to Back at the Ranch, Expedition Online's after show. I am your host, Danny Knaub, and with me is our fourth place finisher, Gideon. How you
Hi.
doing?
How's it going?
I'm good. You've had a few days since you were sadly voted out. How are you feeling overall?
Man, this was an experience and a half. I am so glad I did this. I mean, it was obviously all of our favorite show on TV. It was it felt like I was on that, but online, exactly. And it was great. It felt awesome. It was
Nice.
good to mix with people and strategize and play hard. So
Yeah. Well, you referred to your game. You said that you had been cursed by the Survivor gods.
yeah.
Um, Obviously, as a mod, I've been following your whole game. I thought you had probably the toughest game to play because I mean you had an uphill battle essentially from like the first day. So we're going to talk all about that. But before, just indulge me in a little bit since I just am getting to know you. Found out you're a musical theater guy. I'm a huge musical theater fan. I work in the industry. So what is your favorite musical?
My favorite musical actually didn't make it to Broadway, but it's Hunchback of Notre Dame. So off Broadway show, but a big fan of Michael Arden and Patrick Page. So love
Yeah.
them.
No, and that's a good one. What is do you have a favorite song, whether it's from that show or any show?
Man, I know it's kind of tacky, but I love Singing in the Rain. That's just a comfort song for me.
That's like as far from tacky as possible. That's like so
It's still like everybody knows it, so it's not edgy or
I mean,
whatever,
like
but
I
I love it.
appreciate it. I don't know if that's like something you would say on the first date or something like that, but yeah, I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
And finally, dream roll.
Oh, Dreamroll's the dentist from Little Shop of Horrors. I know it's weird, but I love that role so much.
No, I just appreciate this because a lot of times when you talk to people, you get a lot of like Hamilton is my favorite show or Wicked. It's very, so the fact that you named three shows that are solid choices, I'm a fan already.
Thank you.
So let's actually now talk about your game. So obviously we're all huge fans of Survivor. What was it like finding out that Ethan was your team leader and chose you?
Yeah, well, love Ethan. He's a great player. I always thought a really good social strategist. And yeah, it was good because he's one of the original legends of the game. So when I got on his team, he didn't really pick me. I was last picked, but it still was nice being on his team. And yeah, Ethan's. I mean, he's a staple. If you're a Survivor fan, you know who Ethan is. So it was great.
Yeah, seriously. So already you kind of start this game and it's not the best start. Your team loses two in a row.
Yes.
You're losing Will, you lose Gabe. Obviously, Gabe is going to be coming back with the Trail to Deserted. But just talk to me about those early days. Who were you meshing with? Who was sort of leading the charge in voting out Will and Gabe?
Well, the unprecedented day zero, I made some connections with Chantel, and I really like Chantel. And then I also got to talk to Ryan. So those were the people that I felt closest to. And during that Will vote, it was pretty easy for us all to say Will kind of messed up the challenge and said I'm sorry tribe instead of actually trying. So it was pretty an easy boot on that one and everybody pretty much agreed. I tried not to take a leadership role there. I tried to stay pretty low key and just ask what they wanted to do. And I knew what they wanted to do was to vote out Will, and I wanted that too. So I just wanted them to think it was their idea. So first vote went really well, and I thought I was in a good position. Second vote, I was wrong. And that's where my game got royally screwed up. I think day two was the biggest mistake of my whole entire game, was staying in a call with Ryan and Gabe a bit too long for Chantel's liking, and thus the vote of Gabe happened, who I really wasn't even trying to team with. We were just talking about, who's the person on the outs, and we thought it would be Hannah because she wasn't talking strategy with us. And my whole thing is, if you don't want to talk strategy with me, I want you out of the game as soon as I can get you out. So, and Gabe seemed like an easy person to string along. So I recognize that Ryan was a gamer, and I did want to play with him. But yeah, they thought they were making a good old young person alliance. So I got blindsided on day 2, and that was bad. So that's where my head was at. I was spinning after day 2. I was like, I'm about to be third boot. I was like, I'm next.
That's so fascinating. I mean, so obviously, Gabe is voted out. What is your strategy? Because you probably have what, like an hour left in the day. Was it sort of damage control? Were you trying to
Yeah,
kill themselves?
yeah. If you watch the episode back, I don't know what all they got on the recording because I haven't seen them yet. But I mean, I went back in camp and I'm just going on an apology tour. I'm asking Chantel. I kind of blew up on her a little bit, and I'm like, like I thought you were my number one. I thought I was the person you could trust the most, and then you leave me out of the vote. I'm on the bottom by far. And she's like, no, Hannah's still on the bottom, but I don't believe that. And I still don't believe it to this day. I still think I would have been next out because Chantel was so against voting out a girl. And so, as soon as she said like Hannah's on the bottom, I'm like, no, it's me because you don't want to vote out a girl. So yeah, it was damage control. It was trying to paint a target on somebody else's back, and it was really just saying, I'm sorry, because that's all I could say. And my hope was we would win win exemption, and hopefully that would save me and let my connections run a little deep. And that's when I made the proposal to Chantel that I would be in her back pocket. I would be a vote at her disposal no matter what. Like, I'm loyal to you and you only. So I think that helped me kind of laying low and hiding behind Chantel. Don't know how that would have played out if we went back. But yeah, that's that. My damage control was an apology tour, and then going to Chantel, who, in my opinion, led all the votes for Ethan's.
Interesting. So, to your point, you end up winning, so you don't actually have to go to Crossroads, that final one. Then we surprised you with a swap, and again, your game is a tough game because you're swapped into a minority. So now you are part of Team Ethan, where you are outnumbered 4-3. So talk to me a little bit about this one, because obviously this is a double desertion. You have a compass, so you obviously play the compass, saving yourself.
Yes.
So did you know the votes were coming to you?
Yes, and I wanted them to come my way, because I wanted to get out a member of Janet's and make it go 3-3. I didn't want to turn on Jack. I think Jack had other ideas. So I found the compass pretty early on. I think like day 1, like few hours after we voted out Will. And I was like, if I ever feel on the bottom or like more than 50% that I might be going home, I'm going to play it. So I was planning on playing it if we went back to the Crossroads. But when we got that swap, I was like, I wanted to suss out Jack and Ryan and make people think that they might have an idol. So I'm a safe vote because there's no way I have one. And, after we got back, they told me, Gideon, you had a great poker face. I was like, thank you. I know. But yeah, so they threw votes on my way, which is exactly what I wanted. However, when you play a compass, you swing for the fences and you try to get out a threat. So we were like, let's just get out Kyle because he's the leader of that thing. And that was our impression. So that's who we swung for. He had a compass. And also Jack told him that we were putting votes on him. So he still says like, oh, I would have played it anyway. I don't know if I believe him. But hey, he's a good player. Maybe he would have. But Jack telling Kyle that we were putting votes on Kyle and then him voting against us pretty much sealed Jack's fate. So yeah, so it was a no vote, as you guys saw. And then Jack went home, which I honestly wasn't too mad about because he obviously wasn't a number for me anyways.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously that leaves you and Ryan as sort of the lone OG Team Ethans. Is this? I feel like you and Ryan it was a very interesting relationship. I mean, I think you guys are friends, but is this when you really bonded? Because you guys were sort of both on the bottom. Do you think that's kind of what brought you together, or?
Yeah, and then that that crossroads afters when we really bonded, because I was like, dude, I love you, but it's me or you, and we're gonna have to do this. But I wanted to tell him before anything happened that like he legit was the only person I could trust in this game, and he was. And after the game vote, I he like apologized to me, and he was like, I'm so sorry, I got told last minute. And I believed him. I don't know if I'm the biggest sucker ever for believing him, but he never betrayed my trust again after that. So he told me he was voting me, and I believe that he would tell me anytime after that if he would vote me again. So he was definitely the person I could trust most in this game. I definitely think us being on the bottom together brought us closer together, and the fact that we had to have a little fight and say, no, take out Ryan, which I still think was the right move to take out Ryan, because at that time he was the person that would flip over, and I would have stayed with Janet's, which was the funny thing. I would have been a number for the Janet's because I was pissed that I was left out of the game vote. And I wasn't lying. Nothing I was saying at that crossroads that you guys saw was a lie.
Yeah.
I would have been a number for the Janets, and I would have worked to get out Chandel and Garrett and Hannah and all of them gladly, because I just wanted to be the last Ethan standing out of them. Because at that point, I legit felt like my game was tanked no matter which way I went, and I just wanted to hurt the people who had done me wrong, to be honest. I know it's villainous or whatever, but but then they voted me off, so I was like, okay, now I got to go back to the which I was very emotional that I got voted on to another tribe, but I was thankful, and that gave me a new life in the game. So me and Ryan being on the bottom brought us closer together for sure.
So you kind of explained a lot of the next few votes. So obviously you are voted out next, but
Yes,
meaning you're voted to the other party.
yeah.
So,
I mean, we couldn't play any advantages, so I figured something strange was going on, because I had played my compass and immediately was looking for the clues. I was even scouring Instagram before any clues were released to see if I could catch it early, and there was nothing there. But then he said it was a no advantage crossroad, and so I was like, what the heck, you guys aren't even giving me a shot to save myself. I mean, I was kind of mad at the game makers, because I was like, are you kidding me? But then it made sense once I got voted on to another tribe. So yeah, and I don't know if they would have changed their vote if they knew earlier. I don't know if they would have voted out Ryan instead of me, but yeah, that was crazy.
well, it's interesting because I think you and Ryan had a very similar approach, because Ryan was also selling that whole side that he'd be loyal, that he'd vote with them, that he could be a number. And I think that they just felt like that he was a better choice, that he was more truthful than you were, even though Ryan will eventually flip on them again. So
Yes.
it's just the same kind of strategy. So what are you thinking? Because to me, just from an outsider's point of view, it felt like the OG Team Ethan was just never tight. It felt like it was always individuals and just nobody. It was never like alliances forming. It just felt very. So when you came back, you would think you'd be happy because you'd be in numbers, but it still felt like you didn't belong.
Yeah, because I still felt like even with Gabe back in the game, I was on the bottom with the Ethans. Because at that point, especially pre-rendezvous, I was at the bottom with the Ethans, and I knew I was, because I was the one that was left out of the vote, and then Gabe was back in and already meshing with them while I'm on the other tribe fighting for my life. So when I get back, I am glad, because I think they would at least give me the privilege of being ahead of some of the Janets, like Justin and Jared, who were still on the party when I was over there. But I still definitely felt like I was on the bottom. But you got to work with who you got to work with. At that point, my feeling was, I don't really like any of these people right now, but you got to work with your party and you got to have a majority alliance. And even though I was 4, there were still 2 other spots that would go before me. So I was thankful for that because it's better to be 4 than 6.
Yeah, no, seriously. And, I think the other big thing about this day, which was the final crossroads before the rendezvous, was that you found an advantage, which was the heirloom, which is essentially not saved without power, the legacy advantage, essentially. The twist being you had to give it to somebody else, correct? Or
I hated
somebody from the
that.
other party.
I had to give it to somebody on the other party. If I had the choice to give it to anybody, I would have given it to somebody on my own party. But I had to give
Well,
it to
okay, but
somebody
let's say, so
on
you
another
obviously
party.
chose Ryan, which makes
Yes.
sense because he was on the other side. If you didn't have to go to somebody on the other party, who would you have given it to?
Uh, Probably Chantel, just to um sort of set our trust in concrete and to like prove to her like, yeah, I am with you. Here's an advantage. And shoot, I might have lied and just said I'm giving it to you willingly. Like I don't have to give it to you, but I am. Like I might have just said something like that just to get her to trust me even further. Because by that point, I think that was around the time that she found out that Jack and Garrett were playing together, and that made her kind of distrust Garrett. And at that point, then she told me, once again, you're the only person I can trust in this game. And I half believed her. So to set that duo in place, I would have rather given it to her because Ryan just voted me off. So,
Well, I was going to say, because you really, watching you, it was this grand gesture. It was like, Ryan, I want to make peace with you. And I
I
feel so
tried
bad
to play that up so hard. My inner theater kid came out, man. I was like, Ryan, I just want to say I'm sorry. Like, here is this grand gesture of apology. Like, set this in stone, which ended up working out for me later on because we ended up being one of the most powerful duos of the game. But yeah, at that point, I was still pissed at him. Even giving it to him, I didn't want to give it to him. I was actually thinking of giving it to Kyle because I thought maybe me and him could do something in the game because he seemed like the most blunt person, and I thought Ryan was a little shady. But at the end of the day, I settled on party lines. Original party lines still run strong, and I think he would flip, even though apparently the Janets didn't, which was stupid of them.
Well, we'll get to Kyle soon because that was going to be one of my questions if you ever thought about working with them. But just quickly with that final crossroads, because it was really, really crazy. Like you obviously gave the advantage to Ryan, but what ends up happening is that Garrett played a compass for you.
Yes.
Kyle played a compass for Justin. What did you know Garrett was going to play this for you?
No, I thought he'd play it for himself. It really surprised me because we weren't really that close. He wasn't really the person I was trying to repair relationships with. It was Chantel. And, Garrett playing it for me, I still don't think it was the right move because I think, in this game, if it's obvious, then it's usually wrong. And I think I was too obvious of a vote. Like, yeah, they've put the votes on me 2 crossroads in a row, but I think they knew that somebody had a compass, and they'd probably figured that they'd play it for me, or I was the one that had it. But it was still hard for Garrett to choose which person. Like he had a very small chance of getting that right, and it was a good play on Kyle's part. I would have done the same thing.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that was one of my favorite days to watch because it really forced your group to sort of turn on each other and kind of see what was going to happen. So obviously, Hannah's the one that ends up leaving. Ryan was actually one of the votes for Hannah, which I don't. Did you know that? Because I was.
No,
Oh, well, there you go. So
I don't really care, but
because Ryan at that point was still sort of playing
yeah, with
both
them,
sides, but I
which he
think
should have done that. He should have voted with them. Even he doesn't need to put him. He didn't need to put himself at the bottom, even though he could have gotten out of it next tribal because that would have been 11. So, but yeah, I was still hoping.
So then we get into the rendezvous. So, which is our merge. How are you? I mean, at this point, when it's this collective group, who do you feel close to? Do you feel close to anybody?
I felt close to Ryan and I felt close to Chantel, and that's the two people I felt closest to and most connected to all game. Chantel, like I wasn't lying when I said I would just vote how she told me to do because that's what I had to do. It's extremely boring and I hate it. And it's not the game that I wanted to play at all coming in, but it's how I had to play because I was on the bottom. Um, but I really did think Chantel was a huge social threat that I could hide behind. And even though my target level, because I saved myself twice now, was really high, as the rendezvous carried on, I tried to lower it and lower it with every, crossroad.
Yeah, I mean, watching you, it felt like you were doing that. I mean, you definitely played. I hope this doesn't come across wrong, but like sort of like a wounded puppy in a way. Like you were very like you sort of just like like
Yeah.
coming for me again, and oh no, and to that point you did last, so you
Yeah.
kept going. So I think that strategy worked.
Yeah.
Obviously, Ryan does vote with your side this time. But what went wrong in this one that you end up losing, Gabe?
Um,
Numbers?
yeah, just a numbers disadvantage, and we couldn't get we weren't able to get Justin to flip yet. That was a problem. We couldn't get him to flip. Like we knew that the Kyle, Daniel, Maddie, Rob, Jared, boring alliance would do stuff together always. They'd always move in stride. And like I'm pretty sure at my confessionals was like, if they take over, this is gonna be so boring. I'm not gonna be able to sit by and watch this. It's the end, when we talk about it in the future. But at that point, they, it was a good move on their part to weaken us because yeah, they did have the numbers and a 2-person advantage is better than a 1.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely ran the game for a while up until the Jared vote. But right before we get there, we get into the superlatives, which is always meant to sort of ruffle feathers and cause some chaos. You were voted fake and
Yep.
sneaky.
Yeah, which I expected. I voted myself as fake and sneaky.
Really?
Yeah, I voted for myself.
What about you as fake and sneaky?
Well, I had to play. Which is funny because later on in the game, I was very real, and people would tell me that like I like you because yeah, your game is sleek, but like we know where your vote's going every time. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty real about where I put my vote. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see why people would label me as fake on both sides because I was on 3 different tribes or 3 different parties besides the rendezvous at that point. So I kind of had to maneuver my way and lie my way through stuff, which I definitely told some lies and definitely tried to use some manipulation on people in order to get them to vote not my way. And I held a compass, successfully held a compass and from the original Janet's, which ended up screwing them and made Kyle have to burn it. So yeah, I thought I played a fake game and I was definitely sneaky. I don't think that's
Yeah, I guess sneaky I can see, but fake was the one I was sort of like, I don't know. That's also a weird phrase because kind of like
also, yeah, of course. But my thinking was, if I'm not fake, then who are you gonna say is?
Well, the other one was Jared.
Yeah, which Jared is a good one to say, but I just figured since I had done the Janet's wrong that I would get that.
Yeah. So so obviously Garrett's going to be the one that goes home this vote. He had a lot of penalty votes because he overslept. You get the second most votes.
I get the most real votes.
Most real votes, yeah. But my question to you is, because you kind of brought it up earlier, is that I know watching this day as a mod that that Team Janet started to kind of plant the seeds of wanting to vote out Kyle. And I know that Maddie was pretty vocal about wanting to get out Kyle. I felt like Rob was sort of talking about it. Did you hear any of that on this vote or no?
I heard it from Chantel. And she was like, even Maddie's on board. And I kind of dismissed it at that point because I figured it might happen because Kyle was obnoxiously drawing a target on his back like ever since the rendezvous happened, which as a player is pretty annoying. So I figured we would all turn on him eventually. I just didn't think it would be this vote, and I was right, because Garrett already had the 3 penalty votes, and I knew that my butt was on the line. So Kyle told me what to do, which was put votes on Garrett, and I did, and it ended up saving my game. Like I had to do that.
So I guess just my question though is, was there any part of you that thought you could use this knowledge to get Kyle onto your side? Because if you were already going to follow along with what Kyle was saying, was there a thought that like, Kyle, your team's flipping on you, join me?
Well, I didn't think he would believe me, and then 2, if he did believe me, he would probably hit me with the classic, "Well, I know it's gonna happen, but it's just not gonna be right now," which he still says to this day. Um,
Yeah.
and also, I didn't really trust him at that point anymore. After he put me out of the game after saying he wanted to work with me because I was a threat, which was really buttering me up. I think he was buttering me up before, he was leading the pig to the slaughter at that point, telling me I was a threat. So I didn't really like the guy at that point, and I didn't really trust him. And us voting off Kyle almost allowed us to take control of the game. So I'm glad I didn't work with him.
Well, speaking of, you guys do end up taking control of the game, albeit not for very long. But this next vote, Jared's blindsided. I mean, I think even watching myself, I did not see this one coming at all. So how did that vote come about? Who really led the charge there?
It was Justin, and that's what I said at that's it's what happened. And Justin came to the remaining 3 Ethans and basically told us, I'm willing to go to rocks, which we later learned is the wheel, in order to save my game. And I believe him, because if I was him, I'd do the same thing, because he is number 5 on that alliance, and he had exemption, so he was allowed to play with that house money, as Docs calls it. And so yeah, he came to us, and we are like, yeah, we're down. I mean, I was willing to go to the wheel at that point because I knew it was probably going to be put on, the vote was probably going to be put on me. They ended up putting it on Dustin, which was strange and kind of dumb in my opinion. And Kyle had to be fuming because he probably was like, wait, you guys really let them take control. And so yeah, that was all Justin. I mean, we had to sit back and get on the Justin power trip train, which I was fine with.
Yeah, no, and it felt like, in my head watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, you guys just now took control, and the 4 of you are going to just knock them out one at a time and go to the end. That ends up not happening. So coming into this next one, I'm so curious your thoughts about this, because I know watching you, you were very much trying to get them to vote for Ryan because you knew Ryan had the heirloom, which would have expired that night. So Ryan was going to be playing it no matter what. But I just remember watching the crossroads that you kind of were sort of saying to Maddie and Daniel, you're like, I'm willing to flip with you guys. I'm willing to go with you. Was that all just fake and show?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was completely fake. I really wanted them to put votes on Ryan, because why would I vote Ryan when I know he can play something that has to be played?
Exactly.
I was hoping to get them to do it. Ryan did something that I didn't approve of, which was tell them he had something. And so I think he kind of screwed us over by doing that. And I told him, why did you tell them? Like when you have an advantage, you don't tell people. You just don't, especially on an online game where you can't show it or anything. You just, all you have to do is say it, and then you play it when you do have it. But I really wish he didn't tell Rob and whoever else he told that he had something, because it would have taken them completely by surprise. Because Ryan never really looked for advantages, and he didn't even find that advantage. That was an advantage that I gave him,
Mhm.
and that really could have saved our game because Ryan was a huge threat. And if they didn't know that he had something, then they would have probably voted his way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that that's a good point. Did you? I'm guessing you guys were equally as shocked when Maddie and Daniel played both of their compasses, right?
No, I figured there was two, and I told Chantel there was two compasses out there, and they were both probably going to get played tonight. I just didn't know whether it was Maddie or Rob that had it. I thought it was Maddie that had it, and then, but I also thought, um, it was weird because I went back and forth between Maddie doesn't have one, there's no way, and then there's no way Rob has one. And so in my head, I'm like, there's two compasses out there. We know we don't have them. So which one of them does have it? So I told Chantel I would rather vote for Rob, because I know Chantel doesn't want to vote Maddie, and I don't want to disobey Chantel. But once again, Justin's got exemption. He's on a power trip. He wants to vote off Maddie, so we had to follow suit. And because of that, the Ethans got screwed, which, I mean, there's not a lot we could do. I tried my hardest to get him to go Rob. I mean, both Justin and Chantel are such alphas that they don't really want to break off from what they want to vote. And the thing that ended up breaking it was Justin did win that exemption, so he wasn't going to budge at all. And Chantel wasn't exempt, so he had to follow the person who saved us last, the last crossroads. So it sucked, especially when the move that I would have wanted to make was the right one. But it's not a game. This is not a game that you play solo. You have to deal with other people, and that was Chantel was a casualty of that.
Well, it was interesting too because I felt like Chantel and Maddie were starting to form a pretty good friendship. Felt like they were going to try to align, and so I know, we all have a mod chat. So when you guys are
Yeah.
all talking, we're all messaging each other, and we all said if anybody approaches Maddie or approaches Chantel about voting Maddie, we thought she wasn't going to go with it. And little did we know, she's like, sure. And then it ends up, biting her. Chantel's the
Yeah.
one that goes home. So
Yeah, and I felt awful about that, but once again, like, that wasn't really my vote to control because I didn't have exemption. If I had exemption that night, I would have been like, Justin, like, you better put a vote on Rob, or else, like, this whole thing is gonna fall apart. Because when you have exemption, it gives you power, and he knew that though, so that's why he had to strong arm us into voting for Maddie.
mm, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the power he has is that he can't get voted out. So it really
Yeah.
shouldn't be that he has power of like the decision making, but I guess that's what.
It allows you to play. It allows you to play hard. It allows you to play rough.
Totally.
And I
Yeah.
mean, that's what it did. And I mean, I used that too when I got exemption. But man, it was the right move to do what Chantel wanted to do. And like, I can't say that's my biggest regret in the game because what I wanted to do was right. But I guess I wish Justin didn't win exemption and Chantel did.
Yeah. Well, going into the next vote, you do win exemption, which is great for you, obviously.
Pretty clutch, yeah.
Yeah, and this is another crazy crossroads because now you have what looks like 3 versus 3. And talk to me about, because again, you're the one sitting pretty here. You're like, I'm not going anywhere. So y'all do what you want to do, but it was, two locked sides. So my
Yeah.
question here is, obviously you had no risk because you were not going to go home. But looking back on it, do you think the right decision was to go to Rocks, or was there any part of you that thought maybe the time has come to flip and try to start
No,
something else?
no, I wanted to keep Ryan around as a shield, and it worked out later on because he went before I did. But the hardest part was convincing Justin not to go Ryan. He wanted to go Ryan and flip. And I was like, nah, don't do that. Like, we needed to stay 3 strong. And I told him, I was like, mathematically, there's 2 of them and there's going to be 1 of you. mathematically, they're going to be the one that's going to be picked 67% of the time if we either draw rocks, learned that we went to the wheel. And I was right. So I think it was the right move. Because also I knew that Ryan would be gone next time if he didn't win exemption.
Well, it's interesting because so Maddie leaves, and maybe, and this is more of a question for Justin, so I don't know if you're gonna be able to answer it, but
I'll try.
why why do you think Justin didn't choose to stay with you and Ryan? Was it because he felt like he would have no jury votes in the end? Because
Yeah, he
Ryan
wouldn't have,
and
he
Danny
wouldn't have won. He wouldn't have won in a jury with Ryan, and neither would have I wouldn't have. Ryan's a great guy, is the sweetest kid ever. And also for a guy that's only watched one season of Survivor, to the fact that Kyle still doesn't believe he has. He still thinks he's lying even after the game's over. But I mean, he played a great game. He had to hide because his target level got so high after he won the first two exemptions.
Yeah.
But he's just a likable guy, and cutting him was tough. It was tough, but I understood why Justin wanted to do it. Unfortunately, that meant that I would have had to win exemption or else I was gone, which we learned how that went.
Well, just quickly there, I mean, like I spoke to Ryan a few days ago and
Mhm.
love him, like love that guy
Yes.
so much. But it was crazy because again, like, he's only watched one season of Survivor, so I thought talking to him, I'd be like, like, what was your strategy? And he'd just be like, "Oh, I don't know, like I was just there." But the whole time, he like it was fascinating. He goes, "Well, I knew that certain camera angles would make me look less intimidating, so I always made sure that the camera was looking down on me. I read somewhere that if you're eating, that people don't see you as a threat, so I would spend a lot of time on these Zooms eating." And I was like, you were so freaking smart. Like, like he
Yeah.
was
I
really
mean, and the
smart.
one
And
season he has watched is Cagayan, and that's where the greatest survivor of all time, Tony Vlachos, played.
yeah,
And Tony, I mean, he would say some of the same stuff. And I don't know if he's watched Tony interviews, but he would say, "Yeah, when I would talk to people, I would bend down so I wouldn't look as threatening." It's this. It was very. It sounds like what Ryan's saying. It sounds like he's been watching some Tony Vlachos interviews.
yeah, seriously. So unfortunately, the next two, we have Ryan going out, then you go out. Did you just think that there was just no? It felt like there was just you were up against a wall, that nobody was going to
Oh,
flip, that those three were locked in.
I felt like Kelly Wentworth did when she lost Final Four immunity at Second Chance, because I knew, like, of course you try to be humble, but you know that if you go to the end, with the people that were still left in the game, you're probably going to win. And upon entering the jury, that was confirmed that I would have won. So I understood why they sent me home. I tried my best to make my arguments, even though I'm not gonna lie, that's when like my emotions started getting me, because getting told just straight up that you're going home because they know that there's no way you have a compass, and you didn't win immunity and you didn't win exemption. So they can just say it and you can't do anything about it if you know that they're three strong. Um, so yeah, it was tough. I did try my hardest to convince either Daniel to go, but then after he said, I'm not gonna let Gideon bully me into voting a certain way, I was like, yeah, then that pretty much confirms it. I'm not going anywhere. So that was tough. It was a rough moment.
Yeah. You made it so far. Fourth place is incredible, especially, I mean, just think about all we've talked about. I mean, essentially from day two, you were sort of playing an uphill battle. So, I think you should be really proud of your game. I think it was great. I think, I always say that everyone's dealt a specific hand. So you have some people like, when I speak to Rob, he was in the majority a lot of the way, and that's one game. And you had a game where you had to like play compasses, you had to win challenges, you had to fight, and you did really, really well. I mean, you were the last one of your original party in the end. So I think that that's a testament to your gameplay. So I think you did such a great job. Um,
Thank you.
So quickly, obviously we have a final three. We don't know who won, but we did have the final three. They had their final scent. It was no secret that you are Team Justin. So I'm not even going to bother to ask you who you think should win. But why Justin? Why do you think Justin played a better game out of the three?
Justin's the only person who, one, he didn't read his speech off of Google Docs at Final Ascent, so I really appreciated that. Two, I just think he made the most moves. I think he made some great moves. He was the only one who actually made moves independently. Moves are never independent, but he did single-handedly do the Jared vote. I mean, we were votes at his expense, and that was genius on his part. It was the right move to make, but sometimes people don't make the right moves, like Daniel did when he should have played his compass at Final Six. And so I couldn't really respect Daniel's game. I don't think anybody respects Rob's game. So yeah, I think Justin played a great game. As far as Final Ascent goes, he did all right. So yeah, I definitely am Team Justin personally, just because you try not to be bitter, and I'm really trying not to be bitter, but it also helps that he was the only person who treated me like a human after I lost Final Four. And he straight up told me, I thought maybe me and him could still work together, but he made it clear that it wasn't going to happen. And I understand why, because I wouldn't want to take me to the end either. But yeah, no, I like Justin. He's texted me now. He wants to go hang out. I definitely like him as a guy, but I respected his game a lot because, I've been where he was. He was on the bottom of our party. He was on the bottom and I was on the top at one point. And, he used me and Ryan as shields for his game at Final Six. And we were fine with it because, I mean, we knew that we were threats to win, and we understood why he voted us out. Ryan understood, and I understood. And I mean, it's pretty darn respectable that he made a great comeback as well and actually made moves. He played the best individual game by far. And I know that like Daniel and Rob criticized him for not having alliances and bonds, but he made alliances and bonds when it counted. And with me and Ryan, which is unlikely and a weird bond that we all had. But he's actually a really social guy, and I think he did play the best all around game.
Yeah, watching him, he's very charming.
He
He's
is.
very, it's hard not to want to root for him for sure. Well, we will find out soon who is the ultimate winner. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Playing this game was freaking awesome, dude. Coming into it, I had a totally different strategy than what ended up happening. I thought I would come in and control votes and kind of maneuver things from the background. But I learned that I wasn't the strategist and player that I thought I was. But this did teach me a lot that hopefully I can use if I get on Survivor, which was how to talk to people, how to deal with people, and how to manipulate what perception is, because perception is reality. I definitely put myself at the bottom at the beginning, and I can admit my mistakes. I definitely was dealt some bad luck, but I also did it to myself at some points. But as the game went on and as things got tough for me, I got stronger. And while it might not have been the picture perfect game, like controlling all the votes and winning all the exemptions and always being on the right side of the numbers, it was the game that I had to play. And I didn't make it to the end. I didn't win, but I played as hard as I could. And the fact that the fact that if I just flipped the cup 5 more times, I might have won this game says a lot. So is what it is.
You did as well as you could, and that's what makes this game challenging, is that there's a lot of elements to it. There's a lot of luck, there's a lot of strategy, there's a lot of everything. So you should be very, very proud of your game. You played absolutely incredible. If you had a chance to play again, would you?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, if um I'd make time. I didn't have the time when I signed up, but I made time. I definitely make time again. It's been a great experience, and if the game makers ever want me back, I'm in.
Well, you are a very entertaining person, so I'd be shocked if I don't see you again in a future iteration, whether it's like an All Stars, Second Chance, something of that nature. But Gideon, it was absolutely wonderful talking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time. Everyone at home, thank you for tuning in. I'll be talking to the final three. I don't know who wins, but we'll see. But everyone at home, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you all soon. And